This is Xóchitl Ashé. Welcome to the Pachamama School Podcast, where ancient earth wisdom meets the evolution happening right now. I am a fifth generation Quechua-Aymara medicine woman, and I've prepared an episode today that I know will give you exactly what you need, not just to survive, but to thrive during these incredible times of planetary transformation. If you're here, it's because your soul knows there's another way, a way that our ancestors have always known. And today, we are diving deep. Let's begin. Hey, just a little note. When we were recording these podcast episodes, we thought that the name of this podcast was going to be Future Proof Earth. But as we sat down with spirit, with the earth, and with some medicine, we realized the real name of this podcast is Pachamama School. So enjoy this podcast. Just wanted you to know that the podcast has a new name. Love you. Welcome, everyone. It is my pleasure and excitement to introduce one of my teachers and also mentor and friend now. I'm so happy that we have her on today's podcast. I've actually been wanting to have her on ever since, I don't know if it's been like a year and a half or about 2 years that I did your mentorship. And I love that Future Proof Earth allows me to invite folks like Bari here because the topic that she is so masterful in sharing is money. And I feel like this is a huge topic that we need to talk about, especially during these world-changing times. So I want to introduce you to Bari. Welcome, Bari.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very happy to be here. It's been 2 years since you did the mentor program, and I don't know how many years since we first met in Los Angeles, long time ago when I was
Yeah.
yeah.
I can kind of put a date to it because it was the first time that I did one of your programs, and this was when we would meet by phone. That's how long ago it was.
So what we didn't even meet in LA even though I was there a few times many years ago. This is back in the day when I was doing teleclasses.
Exactly. Yeah, and I remember it must have been about let's see, 17 years ago when I first took the teleclass. That's how long ago
Yeah,
that one
and I was
was.
pregnant. That's when I was pregnant with my one and only son who's 16, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Um so I wanna formally introduce you because you bring a lot of wisdom, and it's important to know like how you got here and what you've been up to. So Bari Tessler, MA, is a financial therapist and a pioneer in the financial therapy field. She has a master's degree in somatic psychology from Naropa University, 1998. She then ran a bookkeeping business for therapists and artists. And in 2001, she merged all of her training and created a somatic-based financial therapy methodology that she has been teaching for over 24 years. She is also the founder of The Art of Money, a financial therapy program, and a mentor program for therapists, coaches, and financial professionals. There's the author of 2 books that you should definitely go get: The Art of Money, a life-changing guide to financial happiness, and The Art of Money Workbook. Her work has been featured on Oprah.com, Inc.com, U.S. News and World Report, Reuters Money, The Physical Times, U.S. Today, The Cut, Girl Boss, NerdWallet, Real Simple, Mind Body Green, The Red Book. And she has also been featured on the cover of Experience Life and Mindful. Bari loves to read, dance, and enjoys dark chocolate. She lives in Boulder, Colorado with her husband, son, and many cats and a big puppy. And you can always find her at her website, baritessler.com. And of course, as always, we're going to have all the links for you guys. The link to her website, her books, and anything she may offer. Welcome, Bari.
Thank you for having me. It's so good to see you.
Hmm.
So good to see
I yeah, I want to start. I'm gonna open with a prayer because I think that when we talk about money, these are sacred conversations.
you.
And for me, this podcast, when we open um, this conversation, we're also opening sacred space because we're talking about things today that are not just deep, that require deep, deep healing in this lifetime. But what I have worked with a lot is that money requires deep ancestral and generational healing. And so we're just going to take this moment to either close your eyes if you're at home, or if you're driving or walking, running around, just be in a state of presence. Just come back to yourself. Maybe just touch your heart with one hand and take a deep breath. Come back to your body. Maybe there's a part of you that doesn't want to talk about money, and just notice. And so as we open sacred space, we call in the energy of the earth. Pachamama tunatsin tundafe. Because we know that with you, all is provided for us. And therefore, may you teach us how to be in good relationship with you so we can love and protect you as well. We also call in the energy of the sun to light these conversations so that everything that is talked about is medicine for those that listen. And of course, we bring in our ancestors, our well ancestors, teachers, guides, protectors, and all of our own spiritual counsel. And of course, we are so grateful for the land that we live in and all the ancestors of the land where we are. Just feeling that gratitude as we open up this beautiful conversation. Thank you, Barry, for being here. Thank you. And so it is. So here we are. I know your story. And I think it's such a great story. And how did you start your devotion to teaching about money?
That's an interesting way of saying it. I don't know if anyone said it that way before. For me, I always like to share that when I was growing up, I had 3 things that I wanted to be when I grew up, you know? One was a solid gold dancer. So
A
I'm a little so
solid gold dancer?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't
so
know that.
yeah, so I'm in my mid-50s, grew up in Chicago. It was a group of dancers that were on TV, wore these great solid gold costumes. They were called the solid gold dancers. Like, I grew up as a dancer. That's what I want. That was number 1. It's like, I wanna be a solid gold dancer. Number 2, at 12, I wanted to be a businesswoman. I didn't know what kind of business. My dad was in business. He was a business guy. I wanted to be a businesswoman, okay? Number 3, when I was 16, I asked my parents if I could go to therapy. And yeah, I wanted to understand myself on a deeper level. Now they sent me to a guy and they sent me to a talk therapist. Both did not work, but it was just it was a beginning steps. And then what happened, and then I got my undergrad in history, still like forgetting what I wanted to be when I was a kid. And after my undergrad, I still didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up, or what my work would be. And I went traveling for a while. And at some point in my trip, my travels, I realized, or I thought I was making up a whole new field. So I put together dance and therapy and thought, I'm going to be a dance therapist. And pretty soon I realized I didn't make up anything. There was a whole field called dance movement therapy, somatic psychology, body centered psychotherapy. And I wound up coming back to the States and applying for graduate school at Naropa in Boulder, Colorado, and started their somatic psychology program. So that's really the beginning of my work. And then the somatic training, I say, helped me through my 20s, into my 30s, into my 40s, 50s. It gave me the skills to be able to be a parent, to be in a long relationship, to be, just really step into myself as a woman, to be a business owner. So the somatic training is my foundation. So remembering how to come back into my body and listen to my body, and that's the base for everything for me. So I want to start there, right? It leads to, I don't know if I would call it my devotion to money, but what happened was in my 20s, my favorite topics were sexuality, spirituality, body, food, grief, and death. And
Mm,
those were my topics. That's what I was devoted to.
mm.
And
I actually said your devotion to teaching.
oh, so
Yeah. Because I would not say
yes,
your devotion to money. I'm a better student than that.
yes. So interesting what I heard. Oh, I want to make everything sacred, right? So
Mhm,
relationship to money is sacred, right? And how
mhm.
we relate to it, and we'll talk. So I love that. So yes, my devotion to teaching. You're right. That's true. Yes. And how that happened was I finished the graduate degree, got the master's, was ready to step into the next phase of life, and then my student loan came due. And all of a sudden I realized that we never talked about money as we were training to be therapists.
Wow.
So, well, yeah, it was shocking. It was pretty mind-blowing, like, wait a second, we never talked about our money emotions, or what our money story is, or family history, or ancestry around money, right? There was just no conversations at all, let alone how do you start a private practice and do the bookkeeping, or what about working with couples? I really wanted to work around intimacy. That was one of my topics too that I loved. And how is I going to work with couples when they're fighting about money? Or they have different styles and approaches around money, or they, and on and on and on. It was such a huge missing, shocking piece for me that it was just completely left out of my training, that I either thought, well, I could either go like running away and travel the world and not deal with the student loan and not deal with this money stuff, because I thought it was really like the most boring topic ever. Or I'm going to face it like I did every other big topic in my life. I'm going to face it head on, and I'm going to learn everything I can from every single angle and do it on a practical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual level. So it became like this jolt of a mission for me that surprised me, and is not where I thought my work would go, or my teaching, or my, or my body of work. But it all kind of started to come together, and first stop was learning bookkeeping, and then having a bookkeeping business. Because when I was 28 to 32, I wasn't ready to be a healer, therapist, but people would throw their books at me, other therapists, and just say, I don't want to have anything to do with this. Well, you do my bookkeeping. And they didn't even know I had a master's in somatic psychology. So I always say I got an insider's view of so much intimacy of money patterns, cash flow patterns, how people were spending in accordance with their values or not, or earning in accordance with their values or not. And then so many a front row seat to family dynamics. I would go into someone's office and their young kids, teenagers would be in the room, or young adult kids, and I got to see so many family money dynamics. So that was like a little interim, and then it was 2001 when I had a mentor that said to me, "Young lady, it's time for you to give your talk on your body of work." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "It's time." And that's when I went for a walk in the woods and just kept walking and walking and said, how do I help myself and my community have a more mindful relationship with money, creative relationship with money, savvy relationship with money, bring in, more ritual, more deep meaning, all the things that my training in graduate school gave to me. And how do I bring that to my relationship with money? And so that's where we were in 2001 when I gave my first talk that led to teaching in tiny groups in my, in my living room in an apple orchard, which led to the telecourses and online courses and right, almost 25 years later. And I keep doing this work. I keep finding, oh, money's connected with our lineage. Money's connected with our relationship with food. Money's connected with intimacy. Money's like, there's a never ending exploration of what money is connected to. So to complete, I never thought this would be my doorway into, a psychospiritual journey or life. I never, but it's also our relationship to money has been a doorway into all those other topics that I was so deeply passionate and devoted to, in understanding everything from intimacy to sensuality to body and food and grief and death.
Mm. Well, I'm so glad that the journey took you to this place because that's how I found you. And my journey with money started also at a very, very early age. And um, I came to your work because I knew that that was one area that really needed my love and support.
Mm.
And I'll do a whole episode on my journey with money. But what I want to lead us to is like why I wanted you on this podcast.
Mm.
So, um, this podcast was Sacred Psychedelics, and now it's Future Proof Earth, where I shifted the the energy of the podcast to not just feature um, teachers and experts on psychedelics, but I wanted to open it wider to feature the people that have guided me, to feature the people that I really admire that don't necessarily talk about psychedelics, even though it might be part of their work. And I really, really, really wanted to have conversations about money because I feel that at this time, as I think we are witnessing some of the most rapid changes that I have experienced in my 47 years of life. And I think money is one of those areas that if we understand it, it gives us a little bit more ease when things start getting very, very challenging,
Mm. Mm.
right?
Yeah, I just put out a little email yesterday and this happened, and I've been saying this at different points for the last 25 years, but I started really saying it during the pandemic, then I really started saying it again recently, that this framework that I've been teaching, so the Art of Money method integrates money healing work with money practices and money maps. So it's 3 phases. It's a holistic approach. And for me, it's a framework and I call it a tried and true method through the ebbs and flows of life, through the ups and downs, through the good times, through the hard times. And that comes for us internally and externally. So sometimes it's internal challenges or curveballs or changes. Or, I know for me, when I had my son, I had a big complication in my labor and we both made it through healthy, but I needed rest and recovery time and had to make some big shifts. right? In my life, in my work, in my business model. Um, Many of us had to make big shifts during the pandemic, like completely pivot how we're doing work or, so shifts can happen internally, whether it's new baby or it's a new marriage or it's a divorce or it's a death or it's a loss of a job or, there's so many transitions that we go through, some that we choose and some that feel like a surprise or a curveball, right? And then there's the external factors of, we now have lived through a pandemic. We've been through so many natural disasters. We've been through 9/11. We're going through world wars where, there's all of these external different presidents with different things that they're doing or not, all right? So I continue to say that this framework that I'm teaching is going to hold you through and give you the tools and practices and strategies and frameworks to hold you through life's beautiful moments and very painful, challenging moments that come internally and externally that happen to all of us, in life. So that's one of my takes on this. When I first started doing this work, there was some surprises for me. I think number one, I think I thought like there would be a different set of emotions that would come up around money somehow. It's the same set of emotions, but it comes up around money. Number one is usually shame for so many people. We could talk about more of any of these or anger, anxiety, or jealousy. But I really thought there was like a different set of money emotions instead of, no, it's the same set of emotions, but they come up around money, right? Or I somehow knew like there's ups and downs in life but money at some point early on, I was like, "Oh, of course, there's gonna be with money as well," meaning this is somewhat simplistic, but not every year are we earning more and giving more and saving more. We hope to have those years, but there's gonna be other years where we're in maintenance mode or other years where we're going through an enormous transition, again, chosen or not chosen. And, how do we get through these times? So I'm just speaking to it a little bit. I'll say one more thing. When I started doing this work 25 years ago, it was still considered so fringe, even talking about money. And I think we've moved through as cultures. Again, I didn't say this yet, but my community online we've had 50 different countries represented around the world. And I'm so proud of that. We've had people from all over the world. But what was I just going to say? Oh, to come back. So, but culturally, at least in the US and other places, there's been huge topics that you couldn't talk about. It was sexuality. Don't talk about it. And then people were like, let's talk about sex everywhere and anywhere. Right. Or then we moved on to death. Don't talk about it. It's a taboo. And then we started talking about death. And it doesn't mean we're done with these topics. And race and lineage and ethnicity. And again, doesn't mean we're done, but it's like, it's coming up saying this has to be brought to the forefront. We have to learn how to talk about this openly and have these brave conversations. We really do. And money is one of the last frontiers. And I've been saying this for 25 years, so that most people that I know, they do so much self-development work on themselves, and their relationship to money seems to be like the last piece. Not for everyone, but you shared that was a little bit about your story, that you had done so much work and then bringing that same lens or attention to your money story, right? And we all have strengths and we all have challenges around money. And most of us did not learn, financial literacy growing up or emotional literacy growing up. And that's part of why I merged those into a somatic-based financial therapy method, right, in 2001. So I'll just pause there. But these are some of the things where it's just been, we don't talk about this no matter what income class you come from. So many families are, be quiet. Do not talk about this outside of the family or even in the family. And I've been trying to change this for years, saying, let's learn how to have these brave money conversations, not with everyone and not, but just in what feels like a safe place, or as Brene Brown says, in spaces or with people that have earned the right to hear your intimate, vulnerable details, around any of your stories.
Yeah. Well, I I have done this work for a very long time, and what I love about working with money is that it shows you so many other things. Um and yet, right? Like it's like the last frontier for so many. But what's interesting as you were talking about this, I remember um the Shift Network, which is an online platform, had hired me to do a 8-week workshop, and then they asked me like propose some other workshop, and I wanted to do a ancestral healing workshop with money,
Mhm.
and they were like no, and I was like what, like how juicy would that be, right? And I was just like taken aback that they were like no. They're like, well, and I was like, well, can you just like tell me why that doesn't sound amazing to you? And they were like, well, our audience is, they're like over 60, and um mainly women, and they're just not really interested in having those conversations
Mm.
anymore.
Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. I don't agree with that at all. My community, I said, I said 50 different countries represented. It's ages 25 to 85 years old, and most are 50 to 8, 50 to 70 range or 40 to 70. And they all want to have the money conversation. They're finally ready to. And yeah, they may have ignored it for many, many years, or they were afraid of it, or they abdicated to a partner, or whatever it is. But for me, that's who comes to me. That's the women. I did a money thing with Shift years ago where I did an interview series. I don't remember if it was called The Art of Money but I did an interview series with them years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why they weren't open to it. But the reason why I brought it up is because I felt like, wow, is that true that you get like if you connect with people at a certain age, they're not interested in this type of growth. The folks that are over 60, the majority, right? Um, because I think that um like my generation, right? People that are soon to be turning 50 are actually finally, like I've really noticed they're finally like open to having these conversations, because when we were younger, what I found with a lot of my peers, and it was something that really cost me, actually growing up in the Bay Area, really cost me to move to LA where I could have these conversations,
Mm, mm,
because I felt like the people that I was hanging out with, which were mostly artists, people that were doing nonprofit work, uh, we're working in some area for social justice.
yeah.
We're very committed to uplifting BIPOC voices in some way with, their gifts. Like these folks that I love did not want to have these conversations. Um, for a long time, I hid the fact that I was an entrepreneur, because it was like, oh, you're working for the system, you're working for the man, right? And it it took me moving to LA to meet other people that actually were so open to having money conversations, so open to talking about
Mm,
entrepreneurship, and conscious entrepreneurship became like a beautiful movement that I was a part of. And now again, I'm seeing that like the younger generation is now more open, and
mm,
they're like, wow, let's have these conversations. And yet, what I'm also noticing is that because of the political climate that's happening right now in the US, we are I am hearing this attitude that's like against the rich, right? And I'm thinking like, wow, okay, I totally understand. And at the same time, it's like, can we be more clear about like who are we um against? Because yes, there's definitely a billionaire class, right? That is, I mean, in my mind, we don't necessarily need billionaires. We can have people that have massive amounts of wealth and riches. But do we need billionaires, that are running the country? That's like a whole nother level. But I see this attitude of like, eat the rich, down with the billionaires. And that makes me think like, uh-oh, here we are again in this place where now we're making money the enemy.
Mm, mm.
And like we need to be having these conscious money conversations, right? Like this is the time once again that they are really needed in our culture. So I wanted to just bring that up and I want to hear your thoughts about that.
Yeah. Okay, well, I have probably 10 different threads that are like
Yeah. It
this.
wasn't a question.
Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. It's just so, I'm someone who just there needs to be so much more nuance to everything.
Yeah.
Like we can't just go, all the rich are this way, all that right. I think
Yeah,
there
yeah.
needs to be a lot more dissecting and nuance and breaking this apart. So one level here, and I'll share a few, but one is just, I started my work in the Bay Area, in a tiny little town called Sebastopol. That's where I was teaching my somatic-based financial therapy method in 2001, in an apple orchard in the right outside San Francisco. And then all my initial groups were one night in San Francisco, one night in Oakland, one night in Berkeley, one night in Santa Cruz, right? So there was definitely, though, this ethos, and it was a mix of different communities. It was the healer, the therapist, the social work, the activist community, the artist community, the nonprofit world. There's a lot, of um, we're not supposed to want money. We're not supposed to talk about money. Money's bad. There's also money's not spiritual. If we have, others don't. Like there's, a lot of black and white. We got into all of that. We got into all of that, just really breaking that apart. I mean, for me, one of the pieces that started me doing my work was that I was, with the master's degree, working as a social worker in the mental health field, making $11 an hour and full time. I could not bring good chocolate to a potluck, and I just wanted to bring a basket full, and I could not even get a massage. So I could not take care of myself and work with my own well-being, which includes financial well-being, on any level. Like I was doing good work, but I wasn't able to support myself, barely making my basic needs. I wasn't even it, right? So that was something that propelled me to say, okay, how do I start creating a business? Which again, business was also like a terrible word. It's like, as you've already said, all businesses are capitalism. Instead of, there's a woman who I did an interview with. It's Annie Schusler. She does a podcast, Rebel Therapist, and she's like, "No, we need micro businesses. This is our communities, our culture, how we help each other. This is the good part of capitalism." Again, for me, it's all bad. It's all good. It's all, what I'm hearing a little bit of Marxism to the extreme in what you're saying. It's like rich people. Like rich people. All rich people suck. I mean, yes, I want wealthier folks to pay taxes and and their fair share of taxes like I do, and that's really important to me. I want us to all have really good health care. So I'm kind of like, give me a combination of capitalism and social, like the good parts of each, right? That's where I'm going. But to come back, there is things in different ethos, like, of we're supposed to do our good work in the world, and somehow it's all just going to work out. But we're not supposed to charge higher rates or charge for it or look at our numbers or want more, strive more, or actually create a successful business. I feel like my community has been wrestling with that for a long, long time, and some people still do. But I help them move through that and beyond that, because I really want to help everyone create bring their good work into the world and make a really nice livelihood doing that. It's different for everyone what the numbers need to be, where they live, who they're caring for, what phase of life are they in. But for me, yes, we need to unravel what are some of those like black and white money messages. Money is the root of all evil. Okay. Or what about like money's just energy? It's how you use it. It can be used for good, it could be used for evil, right? I know very wonderful, generous, wealthy folks. I know very frugal, greedy, wealthy folks. I know really generous middle class folks. I know asshole middle class, right? So I mean, it's just like it's for me, there's a lot more nuance that needs to happen here. And again, I talked about 50 countries represented and the age range also. For me, there's a huge economic class spectrum of folks that I've been working with for years. So I've gotten to really see and hear stories and family stories from folks who grew up in a lower income household. Sometimes they'll say, "I grew up in a poor household." Other people will say, "I grew up more middle class," or "I grew up in a very wealthy family and money's been passed down for generations." I've been able to see and hear so much pain and beauty in all, that entire spectrum. And it's so different for everyone. So I'm just touching on a few things here that you
Yeah.
uh,
Well, I'm so grateful to have you here and have this conversation with you because it's exactly what I was saying, which is that this is a time where we need to have these conversations again because it's divide and conquer, right? Like no matter what, like that's the intention of everything that's happening. It's like, how do we divide people instead of unify them into love, into care, right? So w- one of the ways that I think that we can unite is
mm,
um and not get polarized is to have conscious conversations about money, because otherwise that's one way that you know I felt um I was polarized, right? When I was in my teens and early 20s, is that as somebody that, double immigrant, um grew up with like very low income family, but entrepreneurs, right? So it was like there was that um, ability to also like create money out of an idea,
yeah.
right? And so growing up in that, but yet like having a father who was completely against the system, a hippie, a medicine man, and did not like want to touch on anything to do with like the administrative part of money,
Mm, mm.
right? And just like discovering through my work, like, wow, there's so many ways that historically we have been prevented from learning about money. Before we continue with the rest of this episode, I'd like to take a moment to thank the sponsors of this podcast. This podcast is made possible by one of our sponsors, Microdosify. Their mission is to combat the global mental health crisis one person at a time through quality psychedelic education and community. They've just launched a new program called Microdosify Spaces, a community-led support group dedicated to helping you integrate your psychedelic experiences. And best of all, they are free. To learn more or sign up, visit the show notes. If you listen until the end of this episode, you will also receive a code to take 10% off anything in their shop. Stay tuned.
Okay. So two things. One, I want to talk about micro macro sides of money and then money stories and family money stories, which you're sharing. So the first thing is that my work primarily covers the micro, right? Our relationship to money. Our relationship to money, if we're in a partner couplehood, that dynamic, family, the family we come from, the family that we're creating, whoever that is, whether that's human kids or animal kids or a partner, right? Whoever that constellation is, and then it extends to our work. As far as taking on money systems, right? And what works and what absolutely does not. It's always been very important for me to interview on that. So that's where I go to other experts. Like that's not my training or background. I'm not an economist and I'm not a large thinker in that way. I'm like, let me get into the nitty-gritty of your personal,
Mhm.
story and what's going on. So if I have a huge part of, let's say, the library in my online teaching platform that has a macro section. So what is social justice investing and who came up with that term? And Rachel Robichaudi has an incredible firm out of San Francisco. And I do this great, I have a great interview with her, or, I just, there's so many interviews. Like if you come from a wealthy family, what are ways to redistribute resources or how to help, the Black community. It goes on and on and on, right? So those are interviews that I do with other people because it's not my specialty, but I know that that's so important in this conversation. Right?
Mhm.
When we're looking at a relationship to money, it's focusing on what you can control, right? Which is our personal relationship to all these areas. What you can control is money systems, but it doesn't mean you can't learn about how they work and be an activist or advocate to make some changes there, right? So I just want to touch on that. Um, and I've done so many interview series. Also, one more that I did for years was called Money Memoirs, and it was interviewing folks from all different lineages and economic classes and having them share their money stories from their strengths, their challenges, really hard things that they had to go through and how they made it through those challenging money, situations. And so it's just lot storytelling because that is one of I'd say if I'm devoted to any kind of teaching, it's storytelling. I haven't told really any stories at all yet, but that's normally how I teach is I share so many of my own stories or anonymous, stories from the community. So that's what the money memoirs is for me. It's one way to get at the macro side along with like, tell me about social justice investing. But the second piece is what you're starting to share with everyone is just your deeper money story and your unique money story and how important it is to know that, explore that, get in there and share that. That is so money stories are, everything from our childhood, the environment we grew up in, the class, our lineage, was there religion, was there spirituality, what were the money messages and beliefs you shared, a dad who was both a medicine dad and hippie who was just like, we're not dealing with the system in any way. That can show up and translate in so many different ways, and we take that on. Some of us do exactly what our parents did. Some of us rebel against what our parents did. Some of us say, wait a second, I had one parent that was a spender and one that was a saver. We're never just one or the other. We're always a combination, but couples usually polarize and can go to extremes. We can talk about that more. But our family stories shape everything about our relationship to money, our thoughts, our beliefs, our habits, our healthy habits, our unhealthy ones. I'm second generation and all my family had to flee and escape what was Russia at the time, what was Ukraine. My family's Jewish, so the some of my family got out, the rest were killed, and everyone started over. It made it to the U.S. and their ship was led into the US. Not all ships were, and theirs was, and they started over. So again, I'm the first woman in my family to go to college. But my dad was an entrepreneur, so I did learn a lot. Learn a lot of what I would do and what I would never do.
Yes, exactly.
But as we're exploring money stories to understand, like, what have we taken on? that we want to continue, or what are we taking on from our parents that feels like it's old trauma or just feels unhealthy, or we're different, I love the Enneagram because it's, my favorite personality system, but so we are shaped by our environment, but we also come in the unique personalities that we are. And so we also, come in with that. I'll tell one little short money story. This is a little lighter, but it will give this. So in our childhoods, we do take on financial identities, money stories, right? And as a young child, I probably was 8 when I realized, oh, I'm the designated spender in the family, and my younger siblings are the savers. And my brother had a bank in his bedroom. He was saving money. I borrowed money from him once. I hated it. But I was the designated spender just because I like things. I wanted things. And so I wanted to buy my mom a ring at the school fair. I wanted candy. I liked and wanted lots of things. I was the spender. Now, those are just financial identities that we take on as kids. But a family then, as we were like, has an ethos. So my mom was the saver, more frugal. My dad was the spender. In our family, it kind of was like, oh no, it's better to be a saver, right? So something's wrong with me that I want things or that I like things, that I'm so passionate. And it took me until my 30s when I was finally making beyond $11 an hour, where I was starting to make more money, teaching my groups, doing my work. And I learned how to be a saver and squirrel money away. And my husband and son know that I like to spend, but they know me also as a really good squirrel, that I can squirrel away money for future something, right? So I'm just showing a tiny little example of how financial identities can be given or taken on as a young child. And maybe they feel good or they don't. But as we get older, we can rewrite money stories. We can update our financial identity, you know, and even more, recently I said to my mom a few years ago, I said, Mom, you can be a spender and a saver. I'm both, just like you. You save with your coffee. You could care less about your coffee and simple cotton clothes. But whenever you go to travel to see your nieces in Europe, what are you doing? You're going business class. And you're generous. So we're not just one thing or another, but exploring money stories from as a kid. What did we see our parents doing? What were they talking about money? Were they fighting about money behind closed doors? I remember my mom paying the bills anxiously at the dining room table. Like we're watching all of it. And then based on our own personalities too, we're creating our own money stories and money habits. And I think once we get to our 20s, then we can start to unravel that. Or maybe at 50, we're like, all right, I'm finally ready to do this money work and start learning more. But it is starting to understand what was the beauty, what was the pain, what money messages were passed down that feel good to me. Like there might be some parts of, obviously, the medicine man part, healer, really, you took on. And then maybe some of the hippie parts, like my son says, you guys were hippies when you first met mom and dad. Yeah, we were. We lived more simply. And then we decided, hey, we want to create our work in the world and make more money to do certain things. It's always about intentions of where to use those resources. Intentions, are they based in alignment with our values? And that's ever evolving. I just went off on a whole tangent, but is that
Yeah, no, it was perfect. There's so much that you're sharing that I think is so valuable to our listeners and to me. Um, you know, of course I've worked with you, but for somebody who is listening and they're like, "Well, okay, I get I have to explore my story." That's one part of it. Like, how do I start to rewrite my money story?
yeah. So when people say to me, like, what's step one? Is it get a bookkeeping system, learn a budget? And I always say those are all great things, down the road, and we'll get to them and more of the money practices, money maps part of the work. But the first step for me is a practice. and it's what I call a body check-in. And this came about for many reasons, and how this came about is that the very first evening in that apple orchard, when I went to teach my first class, I called it conscious bookkeeping back in the day before the art of money. The very first evening, it was 10 people sitting in a circle, and I asked them to start sharing money stories and family lineage. And most of them just shut down, went into freeze mode, deer in the headlights. And I thought, what am I doing? I just spent a decade training as a somatic therapist. I'm completely forgetting to bring in the somatic tools and practices here. I'm going straight for money stories and family stories. We need prep. We need some entrance way. And so the very first practice is, just stopping and pausing. It's a version of what you did at the beginning. It's closing your eyes if you want or leaving them open. And then just inviting yourself to be curious and check in on any level in your body. We're all so different how we connect with our body or listen to our body or what we notice. And so some people might say, okay, on a physical level, I can notice that what's going on. Are my shoulders up? Are they down? Are my feet on the floor? My legs crossed? Just notice on a physical level. Or what about on a sensation level? So some of us notice that way. It might be heat in our body or cold or movement or stillness. Other people, when they're checking in with their body, might notice emotions, the whole spectrum of money emotions from shame, anxiety, anger, jealousy to hope and joy and excitement, right? Or everywhere in between, the fight, flight, freeze. You might notice something in that, or you might notice where your breath is in your body. Some people, that's how they check in, is where is my breath in my body? How deep, how shallow? And for me, you can just check in on one of those levels. Just what do I notice right now in my body? Oh, I'm feeling some tightness in my belly. Okay. Or I'm noticing my breath is up in my chest, right? And then I always end a body check-in with what is one little adjustment can I make right now to help me feel more present or okayness right now? And that's the sky's the limit. It could be I'm going to, loosen my jaw. I'm going to lower my shoulders and do a little shoulder shimmy and see if I can get my breath a little deeper in my body, right? So that's the simple practice. But what I invite is people to bring that to every single daily money moment that they have. So when you're going to have a money conversation with your honey, when you're going to have a money conversation with your teenager, your parents, a client, when you're going to do online shopping late at night, when you're going to make a money decision, can we travel? Just there are so many daily money moments that I'm inviting everyone to start doing this body check-in practice. And so for me, it's a practice. It's not one and done. I've done a million of them. And it's before you're going to have the money conversation or as prep, or it could be in the middle of it. You're in the middle of a heated money conversation with your spouse or honey, and you're going, what is going on with me right now? Body check-in. And you can do just a body check-in. And you might have to say to your partner, like, give me a moment, or I'm going to go walk around the block, or I'm going to go to the bathroom, or I'll be right back. And sometimes we forget to do a body check-in before, and during we'll do it after. What happened? I just walked out of the mall with 5, bags of clothes, or I just did some late night shopping and I didn't even notice what was going on with me. So for me, step 1, which leads to understanding your money story more, is bringing this body check-in practice to all the money moments, money conversations, money decisions before, during, and after as much as you can. Because for me, simply it's mindfulness or awareness leads to deeper understanding of our money stories or what they are, leads to I'm going to make some changes, right? That's a simple little thing. But so for me, step 1 is this. It's like a way to gather data. We're out for dinner with friends, the check comes, body check-in. What are you noticing? Oh, I want to pay for everyone. Lovely. Do you have the resources for that? Or are you looking for something else there? Or are you sitting there having thoughts of, well, I know at least two people at this table make a lot more than me, so they should be paying. Just what are you noticing? And so for me, it's gathering clues and data on what's going on in your mind, what's the memories that it's coming up for you, what's happening in your body. It's collecting data. And so it's doing the body check-in over and over and over, which leads to, oh, now I'm understanding. This reminds me of something that I happened as a kid. And I made a declaration that I'm still living today that doesn't serve me anymore. My declaration as a kid, one of them with my father was, I am going to make my own money because I never want to be under the control or have a man have that much power over me, because he definitely used money as a power tool, right? In many, many, many ways with me. So I had to untangle that. Spent years, untangling that. So that's a little bit about practice number 1.
Hmm. I love how you explained it this time. I feel like, from being in your mentorship, you've talked about this, um, you know, body check-in, but I'm really getting it on a whole new level in that for us to even recognize that we have a story with
Yeah.
money. Um, we have to be aware of the sensations that the situation brings up, right? So I've been a Vipassana meditator for over now, I think 20 years. And one of the things that they teach you in this meditation method is to scan your body and feel the sensations. But then the next step is like, well, feel the sensations that either um, you have cravings for or aversions to, right?
Mm,
And
mm,
that practice
mhm,
has been so helpful because then if I have ever, I've been I, like sometimes it's challenging to be like, oh, this is how I feel, like
mm.
to really identify how I feel about something, like doing that body scan, feeling the sensation allows you to see like, oh, is that a sensation of aversion or is that a sensation that I crave, right? And doing that then allows you to be like, "Oh, wow, there's a story there that I didn't even know that was present." Um, so thank you for talking about the body check-in because it's so connecting it to how difficult it is for so many people to look at their money stories because it's not even that it's difficult to look at them, but it's even before then, like, to be aware that we have a story about it, right?
For me, everyone has a money story. Everyone, has strengths and challenges. Like, it's a relationship for me. And so you wanna know what that relationship is like. What you're conscious of, what you're not, what you're unconscious of. You're really getting in there. But what I wanna highlight from what you said is that I shared my version of a body check-in. You shared your version of a body scan that comes from your meditation practice. Probably everyone on this call listening is gonna have their own version of checking in, just inviting themselves to listen, whether it's a meditation practice or a grounding practice. And I never say my way's the right way. Like, let me tell you the exact way to do this money thing. No, this is how I do a body check in. If that feels good for you to do it, bring whatever version of a body check in, meditative moment, other somatic tools, like orienting to the room. There's Peter Levine's work. There's so many different ways to enter in. So if you already have a practice, just bring it on over to your relationship to money. Bring it here as well. That's one of the things that so many people that I work with have done so much deep work on themselves. It doesn't end, right? But they have so many tools and modalities and practices that they just also need to bring into their relationship to money. and it can change everything, but you already have the tools and practices, you've just never said, "Oh, let's imbue our relationship to money with this," or "Let's bring this over here. Let's bring them together," so that it's not separate. It's not this money thing is this separate thing over here that's bad and evil and capitalist and all these things. It's no, it's we're gonna bring it inside, and create a relationship that's based on intention and values and deeper meaning and ritual and these beautiful practices that we live in every other area, and also our relationship to money can imbue as well.
Yes, thank you so much for that. What I was thinking that I want to ask you is like, one thing that I often am a witness to, and of course, I support people with it, but I want to know like what you would say to somebody that has done a lot of work with money and they're like, "Yeah, like I've read all the books, I've done workshops, and yet here I am like constantly coming to this point where I'm like barely making it or I'm
Mhm.
paycheck to paycheck."
Okay.
Um
Yeah.
yeah, how would you support this person?
Yeah, so a few things. One is that there's a very good book by Barbara Stanny called Overcoming Underearning.
Oh, I love that book
Yeah,
so
it's
much.
an older book, it's just great. It's one of the Bibles, I'd say, like,
Yes.
and, she has written many other books. One of them is also Prince Charming is Not Coming. Prince or Princess is Charming. It's not coming, meaning like some of us are waiting for someone to save us in life, in money, and the book is all about realizing you have your own agency and not waiting for Prince or Princess Charming to save you. Like, so there's that. So I think at the beginning of my work, I certainly had to work on overcoming under earning concepts. And for me, it's come up back around again. So I'm not teaching a year-long Art of Money program, which I did for over a decade. I'm now doing a 3-month version of it. And one of the themes is overcoming under earning. So I'm back. I'm on my second round of this work, and I could just feel it's needed so much. So for me, it's internal practices and external practices. Um, because I worked with, I guess, teach a lot in communities, and this was a Ayurvedic healing community. And they brought me in and they're like, we've done so much work on ourselves, and we've even been looking at money but like, what's the best mantra to say? Or what's the best, prayer? But okay. And I said, I love all of that. Like, do it all. And the internal practices around money can be everything from learning how to say no better, creating healthier boundaries, knowing what you're great at and what you suck at, being appreciative of where you are now while also having more goals on the horizon. I mean, I have like, there's a whole little, my first book, there's a whole little piece on my 11 things on, internal practices of overcoming under earning. It's on my blogs. It's right? It's those are the internal practices that are just daily practices for stepping into claiming your value and worth more and more and more, right? The external practices, which I said to this group, is like sometimes there's no more tweaking internally, although of course there is. We're always fine tuning and working on healthy boundaries, but the external pieces are sometimes literally business savvy. It's what's your pricing? What's the money ceilings? I can talk more about that. Or really, what's your business model? So, there are inherent money ceilings in a traditional psychotherapy practice, let's say, meaning there's just so many clients you can see every day and per week and per month. Now, that practice and the amount of money you can make for that might really work for someone, depending on where they live in the world, depending on what their age is, who they're caring for, if they have a partner. It could be really lucrative for someone else who's maybe a mom with a few kids living in an expensive city, right? There's a limit, there's a ceiling of how much you can make unless you keep raising your prices. So there's the inherent ceiling there. So what else can you do? Well, maybe you need to add in a group. so that you can leverage your time and charge less for your group so more people can come, but you can make more money. So sometimes it's it needs to be a holistic approach. It needs to be, what are the internal practices that you need to work on, and knowing your value, claiming your value, learning how to say no, learning how to put better boundaries in place. I can give tons of examples, but it could also just be, hey, maybe the business model that you've been working in, there's a money ceiling to it. Or maybe the pandemic happened and now all of a sudden the business model you had just won't work anymore. So you need to get creative again. And as a business owner, you know, business models last just so long, right? So my year-long program, which was my most lucrative business model, lasted a good 8 years, and then the pandemic hit, and two things happened. One, people weren't signing up as much. They still were signing up for online programs, but not like they used to. The second thing is, within a year of the pandemic, Apple iOS changes shifted my Facebook ads and Instagram ads. And all of a sudden, like, my marketing, which was like, would get 50 people easily in the door over a month, stopped working overnight.
Mhm.
And that just happens. We have to continually get creative, pivot, and be adjusting our business model and pricing and offerings as we go, but we are trying to hit sustainable income. And so there's a few different ways to look at that, whether it's pricing, the offerings, the business model. I'm just naming a few of lots more strategies and stuff for cash.
Yeah. No, I think
What
this
you
is
hear.
so great.
Yeah.
It's so, so great. I do wanna just bring up one practice that, you have taught me, which is the
Mm.
money dates.
Okay, excellent. Yes. S Thank you. Do you wanna say anything more about it before I share?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love your excitement. I love you
Yes.
so much. And I wanna have you back because I feel like,
Sounds good.
just time flies when we're talking.
Yeah.
Um, well, one of the things that I have found is that, um the money, like, learning about the money date was so awesome because I had done prior work, with that book of Overcoming Underearning, but also with I'm really into the 12-step program with Debtors Anonymous and also Under Earners Anonymous,
Yes.
right? And so one of the things that they really advocate for is clarity in your numbers.
Okay.
And so when you taught me about the money date, I was like, yes, this is like even better than that, like has that plus plus plus. Um, so I find that there are times when I'm excited about the money dates. And then there are times where I will procrastinate and just like keep on not putting it on my calendar. And I like there's some anxiety that's present that is very hard to move through to actually get to a money date. So that's how I want to start this conversation because I would love for you to, one, just, you know, tell us about what is a money date. And then two is how can people move through whatever is present to even get to a money date?
Love it. And to go back to your question of, like, when people are, like, living paycheck to paycheck, or they can't get past the basic needs to get to a comfortable lifestyle, let alone even beyond that, like when they keep, you know, in these cycles, you can look at the overcoming under earning practices, internal, external, but then there's just my art of money framework. And there's so many tools in there, right? Which are in both my books. And this is a really important practice. I do get really excited about it. Okay. So I'll just say, in life, we have self-care practices, right? And we all have self-care practices to take care of our body, our health, our relationships. Well, we also need self-care practices around money as well. I liken it to a garden that needs our attention and care, but you don't want to overwater it, but most of us underwater it, right? So we need self-care practices. And for me, Money dates is like step one. And a money date is simply sitting down and going, it could be at a cafe, it could be at home at your desk, it could be anywhere, right? Over the kitchen table. Hey, money, what is one next step that I can take right now? Okay, that's it in a tiny nutshell. But everything that I do, if I knew this from like day one. As I said, money was so boring to me. I used to throw away my bank statements in graduate school. What do you do with them? I don't know. But so the only way I was going to step in was if I was going to bring the deeper meaning and the ritual and the creativity and the playfulness even eventually into it. So when I sit down and do a money date, what I encourage people to do is light your candles, get out your essential oils, get out your chocolate, get out your rocks, get out, like set up the space. If you want music, play your music, whatever's going to put you in the mood. I like quiet. And just really imbue the space with I'm going to give myself this time and space to honor my relationship to money. And, it could be just taking care of some of the practical to-dos. And most of us have a list that will go on forever, but it's good to, we go one at a time. Oh, I haven't sent off those invoices. I'm having so much resistance of sending off invoices. Let me sit down, light my candles, set a timer, maybe even dance around my room, come back, sit down, start finishing those invoices and send them off. Or I need to call a new accountant right now, or it's time for me to learn a new bookkeeping system because I'm so afraid to look at my numbers. Let me start doing some research or read some of Barry's articles on what are the best bookkeeping systems. Or there's just so many little baby steps. I need to move money over. Or one of my little money dates is every morning I wake up. If I'm not, on teenager duty, then I have my coffee and I go online just to look at my balances, and see if it looks good, right? And I might open them up to see, is there any funny business? Are there any money leaks? Like, do I have too many TV show subscriptions? Like I don't need 5, but I need 3, things just, just going in there. And so there's all these money dates can look a million different ways, but the nutshell is just sitting down, lighting some candles, getting out your chocolate or whatever your thing is, setting up the space and starting to create a little to-do list and picking one. I'm going to take one step right now and take a step practically. Okay. So that's the first part of it, or the first and second part of it. The second part of it is just that for many of us, yeah, there's a lot of resistance. There's, we schedule it, we ignore it. We go to sit down and then we get up and go get a snack, or we might need a snack. Like I'm a mom, and I like food. So we need our snacks, but we might just keep noticing that we're having so much resistance. So that's when the body checking comes in. So we may we may get up, we may go get a drink, go get some water, like go to the bathroom, come back, and now we're going to do a body check-in. What am I noticing in my body? What is this reminding me of? What am I so afraid of? How can I slow this down? Everyone's so different. I've heard so many different stories. One person will sit down to have a money date and she goes speedy, speedy, speedy fast through paying her bills. She just wants to get it over and done with as fast as she can. And it would be really helpful to do a little body check-in, to slow it down, to go, what's the memory here? Oh, it's my mom anxiously paying bills. Or, oh, I'm remembering my parents fighting. Or, oh, I'm just afraid that I won't have enough money. Or, oh, I'm just afraid I don't know how to look at my numbers. I have never learned that. So bringing the body check-in to our money dates can be really, really helpful. For some people, bringing in the ADHD strategies are really helpful, whether you have ADHD. I have mild ADD. So I don't need to set timers, but some people do. It could just be a 5-minute little money date. And then you celebrate that you did it. You took one step. You made one phone call. Other people need a buddy. So something we added in my programs a few years ago was every Saturday morning, there's a group money date. There's a group co-working session where the community comes together and there's a little meditation at the beginning, and then everyone states their intention of what they're going to work on. and it's all so different, and then everyone goes off to do some co-working, like, it's called body doubling. I don't that term is so funny to me and strange, but it's basically you just need a buddy to get some shit done, get some stuff done, take some steps, feel brave, and then they come back at the end and share what they did, what they didn't do. So there's lots of strategies that we may need to add in to our money dates. I've had women that scheduled it on their calendar, and these were moms. And one mom in particular, she puts a sign on her door. My time, no one's coming in, do not bother me. And for her, it's an hour, like an hour a week. No one is touching that time. She's just like, it is, like no one is taking this from me. She's fully owning it, claiming it. Sometimes we need to do that. So we're all going to have different dances of how we do procrastination or how resistance comes up. So we have to work with that, right? And either have a buddy, there's all these online focus made, or you can do co-working sessions online in all different ways. Or a lot of people get my book and do a little a book group, and they read it together and start having money conversations, and then they get to the money practice part. Oh, my puppy's here, my big puppy's here. I didn't know he was in the room. And you sit down and maybe even have a dual money date together. So there's lots of different ways to get you in the door, but a money date is really, it's like a ritualized, get stuff done, practical to-do list, but imbue it with your chocolate, imbue it with your body check-ins, imbue it with, learning more about triggers and money stories and all of that. And I would say, at the beginning, have short little money dates. I started with 5 minutes a day, and then I just built from there, and then it could be 15 minutes every few days or 30 minutes twice a week. You'll find your own rhythm and eventually create your own grooves, and find that right timing and relationship with this garden of life and this part of your money self-care practice. And there's money dates, and there's so much more, like, creative ways to get in there with money. Money dates are just one of them.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
So as we are closing, but we definitely want you back. I want to take this moment, yeah, just to, Barry, maybe you can just take a moment to take a deep breath and just, be with your heart. And as we're closing, and you are also here on earth at this time where there's so much fear. One of the things that I've really noticed, there's so much fear about lack, about the future of money. Like, are we going to be in recession? Are we going to be experiencing, um, yeah, that lacking of resources? So during these challenges, what wisdom do you want to share with our listeners that has supported you, has supported your clients, and be so supportive to our the people that are listening to us right now?
Yeah, I feel like we've touched on a few of them, already, which is, start inviting in these body check-ins to all these daily money moments. Start practicing money dates, start doing that, right? On top of that is, what are the ways that you fortify yourself? What are the ways that you cultivate your own sense of value or worth or trust or enoughness? I can go on a daily basis. So go back to your own wisdom practices and bring in money along the way, because this keeps coming up. It's not my quote, it's an old Greek philosopher. I'm forgetting who it is. Focus on what you can control and let go of what you cannot. I know that's very simplistic. I would say that's a piece of it, but again, we can just plan so well, and I love some planning, but life is going to have curveballs that are surprises. Again, internal ones that we mentioned at the beginning, or external ones, or ones we don't even know. We've been concerned about a recession for a while, right? But we've stock market did crash in 2008 and then came back. And, my financial planners are always like, "Don't look too often, just hang in there. There's gonna be ups and downs and ebbs and flows." So keep coming back to your financial house, your personal relationships, your relationship to money, and work on fortifying what you can change, what you can work with, new daily habits, new practices that you can put in place. And yes, go through my 3 phases, whether it's from my books or my podcast, and really learn that framework of money healing, money practices, and money maps, because that is just such a helpful framework that can carry us all through all sorts of internal and external life and money challenges. But keep also adding in the practices we do of fortifying. I have the tools to help me through life's biggest challenges, and I'm going to keep working on them daily. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Barry, for being with us, and thank you for all your love and wisdom.
Thank you so much for having me. I love being with you.
Yeah, thank you. We'll put all your links, so if you guys want to continue finding out or working with Barry, her website as well as links to her books will be here. Thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
us today. If you've enjoyed this episode, the best way to support the Pachamama School podcast is to subscribe, leave us a review, or share with a loved one. To stay connected with our community and learn about upcoming ceremonies, gatherings, and earth wisdom teachings, visit the show notes and sign up for our newsletter at xochitlashe.com. As a special gift to our podcast listeners, you can download my free ebook, Bridging Worlds, Indigenous Wisdom for Microdosing Mushrooms, where you'll learn to integrate indigenous wisdom into your microdosing practice. Once again, I'd love to thank our sponsor, Microdosify. Listeners can take 10% off anything in their shop. Just enter the code SACRED. Thank you so much for walking this path with me today. And may your life be filled with Pachamama's blessings, medicine, and magic.